Hello, my name is Jeremy Sims, and I enjoy teaching the Bible. Specifically, I like really getting into the Bible, looking at it deeply, and then finding stuff that I've never seen before, and then sharing that with you in the hopes that you've never seen before too. I think that's really exciting. I really like to do deep dives, but I'm also trying, kind of experimenting with doing shorter videos. So this is my shorter teaching on Jeremiah chapter 1. We're just going to run through the entire thing and talk about it. So a little background information real quick. The book of Jeremiah is not something most people know about or spend a lot of time studying. Jeremiah lived 350 years after the time of David. There was a civil war between Israel and Judah. The nation of Israel, or sorry, civil war in Israel that led to the formation of Israel and Judah as two separate nations. Judah was formerly a part of Israel. Anyway, both nations went very bad, turned away from God. Israel quickly turned away from God and was destroyed about 100 years prior to the time of Jeremiah. Judah is where Jeremiah lived, and it is doing a little bit better, but it was still pretty bad, going after a bunch of nasty stuff. And that's basically where we pick things up. So let's start in verse 1. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, one of the priests who were in Anaroth in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the king of Ammon, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, and until the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the captivity of Jerusalem in the 5th month. So that was a bunch of words, but there's actually some interesting stuff here. So we see that this is Jeremiah. He's the son of Hilkiah. Now there was actually a high priest named Hilkiah, and this might be that high priest, but there's a lot of debate about that, about whether or not that's the same person. I guess Hilkiah was a somewhat common name. One of the priests who were at Anathoth in the land of Benjamin. Now, this town of Anathoth was a Levite city, so it was, special to the tribe that contained the priestly class. And also, it was really close to Jerusalem, within just a few miles, so it might have been within commuting distance, which might lead to the idea that, Hilkiah was the high priest, maybe. Of course, didn't call him the high priest, so interesting idea, anyway. To whom the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon. Now, Josiah... you might be familiar with Josiah as the boy king if you kind of heard some Sunday school stories. When he was a teenager, he actually discovered, or rather had the high priest underneath him discovered, the book of the law. Apparently, Judah had gotten so far away from God that they hadn't even had a copy of the law, the Mosaic covenant, those early scriptures. So they didn't even know what they were supposed to be doing following God at the time. That might have been Jeremiah's dad who actually found that and brought Josiah. Josiah chose to go in the direction of being a reformer, of getting away from all the false gods that they were worshiping, and they were really hideous acts of worship to these false gods too, and get rid of them, tried to get back to following God. But God spoke to Josiah and said, look, you're faithful, and because of that, I'm going to reward you, but the nation itself, I can tell it's not going to repent, it's not going to turn away. So even before Jeremiah even came on the scene, or maybe about the same time, it was clear that the people were kind of doomed. Judah wasn't going to turn from their ways. It also came in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, and until the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the captivity of Jerusalem in the 5th month. So anyway, if you look at this and look at the history, this goes through the span of about 40 years. So Jeremiah had the span of about 40 years where he was acting as a prophet. Got to move on. The call of Jeremiah. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. So this is a really good verse of showing that just God has that foreknowledge of us before we even exist. We still have value and purpose and direction in his eyes. There is a purpose to each life that God creates. Verse 6 says, Then I said, Ah, Lord God, behold, I do not know how to speak, for I am only a youth. But the Lord said to me, Do not say I am only a youth, for to all to whom I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. So a lot here. God called him in verse 4 and 5, said, hey, you're going to be my prophet, just say what I need you to say. And Jeremiah's first response is kind of funny here. He says, Lord God, and that word is like a kind of feeling. He's upset by it in a way. He says, I don't know how to speak, I'm only a youth. Most people think Jeremiah is about 17 years of age. I don't know why exactly. Apparently this can kind of be an adolescent age is what this seems to refer to. Not sure where 17 comes from, but a lot of people suggest maybe 17 years old. Regardless, he says, I'm only a youth, I don't know how to talk. And God's response is really interesting. He says, do not say I am only a youth. He kind of says, I don't want to hear that. Whatever your excuses are, whatever negative talk you have for yourself, I'm telling you to do this. Do it. And also, he doesn't correct him. He doesn't say, hey, you really are a good speaker, or you're not young and inexperienced. He doesn't say that he's incorrect in his objections. He just says, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you got problems. Yeah, you're not going to be able to handle this. That's okay. Trust me, I'll take care of it. Do not say I'm only a youth, for to all to whom I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I'm with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. Now, this word deliver sounds kind of nice, right? Because, oh, yay, he doesn't have any awful suffering to look forward to. Well, no, that is not what it means by deliver. Because he went through a horrible life in many ways. What we would think of as being really unpleasant. He was hated by everybody. He was abused. He was thrown in prison. He was beaten. All sorts of horrible things happened to him. And he saw his country fall down around him. It was very sad. So it seems to be delivering in the sense that many of the prophets these days that actually spoke out against the culture would just be straight up murdered. And he wasn't murdered. I think that's actually the main thing God's saying with. He's saying here by delivery that he's going to deliver them in the sense that he's going to give him the power to overcome the people who are against him and be able to deliver God's message to the people. Then the Lord put out his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said to me, Behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have set you over this day over nations and over kingdoms, to pluck up and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. So we see God, this objection to not being worthy of being used by God, and then God responding by saying, by touching his mouth. This is actually something we can think of parallels from other places in the Bible. We see something very similar happen with Moses. We see something very similar happened with Isaiah, even to the point of actually the touching of the mouth sort of thing. It's some very similar ideas and seems to be, just that idea expressed before of, yes, you are unworthy in a certain sense. Yes, you can't handle this, but I'm going to do what I need to through you. I'm kind of going to purify your mouth, or at least in the sense that I'm going to give you the ability to say what I need you to say. See, I have set you this day over nations and over kingdoms, to pluck up and break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. So he said he's being put over nations. Well, in what sense? Well, in the sense that he is pronouncing God's judgment on the people. He's not actually directly ruling over the people. Again, he was horribly abused. But he is speaking in the position of God, speaking what God says. He's not just taking that power upon himself, but he's speaking as like somebody ruling in the place of God, and he's pronouncing judgment upon people. And then this really interesting, to pluck up, to break down. These are the specific things he's supposed to do: to pluck up, to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. And of course he's not literally doing these, but he's pronouncing what God is going to be doing, delivering that message to the people. And what's in here is interesting. Pluck up, break down, destroy, overthrow. These are the first four things are all, tearing down. So we have a negative connotation with them. But then the last two, it turns a little bit and says to build and to plant. So we see that it's mostly doom is kind of Jeremiah's message, but there is also a little bit of hope there too. And also that the doom comes before the rebirth and the regrowth. There's time to tear down and time to build up, and it was a time to tear down. Verse 11. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Jeremiah, what do you see? And I said, I see an almond branch. Then the Lord said to me, You have seen well, for I'm watching over my word to perform it. So it seems like Jeremiah got a vision here, and specifically he got a almond branch, and then God responds to that by saying, You've seen well, for I'm watching over my word to perform it. And you're like, what in the world does that mean? Well, in Hebrew, the word almond sounds very similar to the word watching. So it seems to be kind of like a word play. Also, almonds are the first tree to bloom, and they bloom very early, and they produce their fruit very quick. So there's probably some connotation of like judgment is coming quickly, maybe signs of the changing seasons, because almonds would be the first one to bloom in the harvest. So it could be kind of like this is the beginning of things to come. Get ready. And this is how Jeremiah operates. He does lots of little word pictures that kind of paint a larger a metaphorical idea of what he's trying to convey. Let's go ahead and go to the end of the chapter. We got a big section here that kind of all goes together. Verse 13, the word of the Lord came to me saying, the word of the Lord came to me a second time, saying, What do you see? And I said, I see a boiling pot facing away from the north. Then the Lord said to me, Out of the north disaster shall be let loose upon all the inhabitants of the land. For behold, I am calling all the tribes of the kingdoms of the north, declares the Lord. And they shall come, and every one shall set his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem, against all its walls all around, and against all the cities of Judah. And I will declare my judgments against them, for all their evil in forsaking me. They have made offerings to other gods, and worshipped the works of their own hands. But you, dress yourself for work, arise and say to them everything that I command you. Do not be dismayed by them, lest I dismay you before them. And I, behold, I make you this day a fortified city, an iron pillar, bronze walls against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you. For I am with you, declares the Lord, to deliver you. A ton of stuff in this section. Ton of stuff. So he gets another vision, and it's of a boiling pot. So what's the deal with this boiling pot? Well, again, it's always metaphorical. It's also tilted, and it's like it's about to pour out, specifically from the direction of the north. Well, you think of this as boiling cauldron, really hot, fiery, not fire, but hot stuff that's about to be poured out. It's like that judgment. Associations with fire and judgment are pretty common, right? It's about to be poured out from the north, and the north is the direction that the Babylonians would be coming from, Babylonians being the people that ended up taking Judah away into slavery. The Babylonian Empire would ultimately stretch all around this area, but Babylon is actually to the east, but they always approached from the north because there's a big desert between Babylon and Judah. So yeah, they're going to be coming from the north. Out of the north, disaster shall be set loose upon the inhabitants, which disaster is a key word used in Jeremiah over and over and over again. It just means like evil or bad, most literally. Shall be set loose upon all the inhabitants of the land. For behold, I am calling the tribes of the kingdoms of the north, again, this referring to Babylon, declares the Lord, and they shall come. And every one shall set his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem. The gates are where they would do the judgment for the city. It was like the courthouse, kind of, the positions of power. They shall set his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem, against all its walls, all around, and against all the cities of Judah. And I will declare my judgments against them, for all their evil and forsaken me. They have made offerings to other gods, and worshipped the works of their own hands. But you, dress yourself for work, arise and say to them everything I've commanded you. This is just an interesting phrase, this dress yourself for work. It's like, get ready to take care of some business. This is a task I'm giving you, and it's going to require some work, right? That's what's being conveyed here. And specifically, it's actually this idea of girding up your loins, which is specifically, back in the day, the men would wear robes. But when they wanted to get some work done, you don't really want to do some heavy labor with your big dress-like things on. So they would take the excess of their robes and tuck it between their legs, and then tuck the excess robe into their belt, and that would get out of their way and basically turn it into shorts so they could get some work accomplished. But you, dress yourself for work, arise and say to them everything I command you, and do not be dismayed by them, lest I dismay you before them. That's really interesting. He's condemning Jeremiah for potential cowardice. He says, if you're a coward, then I'll give you a reason to be scared. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that we should not be afraid of those that are, standing against God. It seems to me that cowardice isn't something we teach against very often, but it is taught as bad in the Bible. And I, behold, I make you this day a fortified city, up an iron pillar and bronze walls against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. You see, all these people is going to be making angry, everybody of power. And we get the idea these are all strong kind of defensive fortification type ideas. Iron pillar probably talks about like the central support column for a building. Bronze walls would be a way they'd keep people from breaking down walls by coating it with bronze to make it more resistant to impact. They will fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you, for I am with you, declares the Lord, to deliver you. That's just good. He's saying, I'm going to accomplish what I want to accomplish with you, and that's really encouraging. Big picture, what do we get from this? A couple things stick out at me. Really, that last verse, they're going to fight against you, but they will not prevail against you. It's just really encouraging to me, because yeah, we live in a society that's oriented against God. All societies, I guess you could say, at least tend to be against God, right? And just the idea that they aren't going to prevail is wonderful. Another thing that comes to mind is, just learning from Jeremiah's life here, he was given an unwinnable task in a way, like not in the sense that God wouldn't accomplish what he wanted to. God did, but he wasn't going to prevail. He wasn't going to win people over. The nation was doomed, and he kind of knew that from the beginning, it seems. Or at least perhaps he did. That's, it's room to debate on that. But regardless, just the fact that he stood up and continues standing no matter what is a big encouragement to me, because, if we really believe what we say we do about, God being the solution for everything, and there being an actual eternal judgment coming, then, where are our priorities? What are we doing? Are we organizing ourselves, getting ready to give everything we have for the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of getting this message to the people, to stand up and to not be afraid? I think that's well worth considering. So anyway, that's it. If you want a more detailed teaching of this, I have that. It exists. And I go in a lot more detail, probably about 4 times as long as this. And you can find that, and I guess I will catch you on the next one. Bye.